At just 18, she was on the cusp of adulthood, yet still wrapped in the innocence and uncertainty that youth brings. Her life had always been modest, framed by the routines of a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. She lived with her family in a humble home, helping with chores, supporting her younger siblings, and dreaming quietly of a future beyond the narrow streets and predictable days of her hometown. Despite her youth, there was a strength in her that was evident to anyone who looked closely, a mix of resilience, curiosity, and an innate kindness that made people gravitate toward her. Yet, she had never imagined that her life would take a dramatic turn so suddenly, that her world would be reshaped by a single, unexpected event. It was on a calm afternoon, the sunlight casting a warm glow over the town's cobblestone streets when he arrived. The widower, a man several years her senior, quiet but dignified, with eyes that hinted at both loss and wisdom, had 3 children and a life already shaped by responsibility and sorrow. To the town, he was a figure of respect, though his age and the absence of a mother for his children had created whispers of pity and curiosity. For her family, the man was both a mystery and a source of intrigue. Someone whose life had been marked by tragedy, yet still carried the weight of authority and stability. The proposal came not as a grand, romantic gesture but as a practical, almost matter-of-fact request. He approached her parents with sincerity, expressing his desire for her to become his wife. The simplicity of his words belied the complexity of what he was asking. Her life, her freedom, and her identity would change in an instant. For the young woman, the moment was overwhelming. Her mind raced with questions. Could she care for children not her own? Could she live in a house that was already full of memories of another woman? Could she handle the expectations of a community that would undoubtedly judge her for marrying so young, and to a man who was, in many eyes, far older? The reactions around her were equally charged. Her parents were torn between practical considerations and protective instincts. Her mother worried about the challenges her daughter would face, the sacrifices required, and the potential judgment of neighbors. Her father saw the stability the match could provide, but was uneasy about the responsibility of letting go of a child so young. Meanwhile, townspeople watched with fascination and speculation. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Why would an 18-year-old marry a widower with 3 children? And is she ready for such a life? These murmurs weighed heavily on her, adding layers of doubt and fear to an already daunting decision. Despite the uncertainty, there was also an undercurrent of possibility. She glimpsed the kindness in his eyes, the quiet determination to protect his family, and a sense of safety that she had never known. He was not a figure of mere authority but of stability, a man shaped by hardship, yet capable of offering care and guidance. The tension between fear and opportunity created a whirlwind of emotions, making the young woman question herself, her dreams, and her understanding of love and duty. In this part of the story, the focus is not only on the proposal itself but on the psychological and emotional landscape it creates. It sets the stage for the story's central conflicts, the challenges of age difference, the dynamics of blending into a pre-existing family, and the societal expectations imposed on youth and women. The reader witnesses her vulnerability, her courage, and the first moments of the internal and external struggles that will define her journey. The proposal is not merely a plot device. It is the catalyst that thrusts her from the familiar safety of adolescence into the unknown terrain of responsibility. Love and societal scrutiny, foreshadowing the trials and growth to come. After the wedding, the young bride stepped into a world that was at once familiar and utterly foreign. The widower's house was warm but structured, filled with the remnants of a life carefully maintained after the loss of his wife. Each room seemed to echo with memories, some joyful and others tinged with sorrow. She quickly realized that marrying into this household, was not simply about sharing a home with her husband, it was about stepping into a fully formed family, complete with 3 children who had already experienced the absence of their mother and the complexities of grief. The children were her first real challenge. The eldest, perhaps around 10, had grown fiercely protective of the younger siblings and wary of strangers, especially women who might try to take their mother's place. The middle child was more reserved, a sensitive soul who kept emotions locked behind a quiet demeanor. And the youngest, still innocent in many ways, expressed feelings more freely, sometimes in tears, sometimes in mischief. Each of them had their own coping mechanisms, their own understanding of loss, and their own expectations of what this new, young woman might bring into their lives. The bride realized that gaining their trust would require patience, empathy, and consistent kindness, none of which could be faked. The early days were a mixture of awkwardness and tension. Simple routines, preparing meals, organizing chores, and establishing bedtime rituals felt overwhelming. Every action she took was scrutinized, sometimes silently, by the children who were testing her boundaries and gauging her intentions. Even small missteps were magnified. A forgotten task could draw criticism, a misplaced word could be interpreted as judgment. And through it all, she was acutely aware of the age gap between herself and her husband. While he treated her with respect and kindness, she sometimes felt like a child playing the part of an adult, trying to measure up to expectations she barely understood. Her relationship with her husband was similarly complex. While he provided guidance and support, he was reserved, shaped by the pain of losing his wife, and cautious in opening his heart again. He viewed the young bride both as a companion and as someone who had the potential to influence his children, for better or worse. He tested her patience and maturity gently, observing how she handled small crises, a child's temper tantrum, a late-night wake-up, a sudden minor accident. In these moments, he saw both her inexperience and her remarkable capacity for compassion, which gave him hope that she could grow into the role of wife and mother. The narrative during this part focuses heavily on adjustment. The bride learned to navigate not only household responsibilities, but also the delicate emotional landscapes of her new family. She experimented with ways to connect, reading bedtime stories, assisting with schoolwork, or quietly listening when the children needed to talk. Slowly, small victories began to appear, moments when a child smiled at her, asked her for help, or allowed her to sit beside them without suspicion. These moments were tender and deeply meaningful, forming the foundations of trust that would take time to solidify into genuine familial bonds. At the same time, the outside world continued to judge. Gossip and whispers about her young age, her sudden marriage, and her ability to manage 3 children created an additional layer of pressure. She felt the weight of community expectations and the silent comparison to the deceased mother, which made her cautious about every word, every gesture. This external scrutiny, combined with the internal challenges of the household, tested her resilience daily, forcing her to grow faster than she ever imagined. The bride had begun to find her footing. While there was still tension, there were also glimpses of connection and hope. She learned that love and trust could not be demanded, they had to be nurtured, day by day, through consistent care, patience, and courage. This is critical because it highlights the early struggles of integration into a pre-existing family, the challenges of bridging generations, and the gradual, realistic formation of bonds that will later become the emotional heart of the story. As days turned into weeks, the young bride began to feel the subtle, delicate shifts within the household. The initial tension that had dominated her early days gradually gave way to small moments of understanding, laughter, and shared experiences. These instances were not grand or dramatic. They were quiet, almost imperceptible victories that hinted at the formation of trust and familial bonds. She started to recognize that love and connection in this household would grow slowly, nurtured through patience, empathy, and genuine care. The children, each with their own coping mechanisms, began to reveal facets of themselves that had been hidden behind walls of grief and caution. The eldest, who had been fiercely protective and skeptical, allowed glimpses of his softer side, a quick smile when she helped him with his chores or a quiet thank you when she joined him in a hobby he loved. The middle child, initially withdrawn, gradually leaned on her for comfort during moments of sadness, finding solace in her presence. And the youngest, once wary and unpredictable, began to seek her attention, pulling her into games or asking her to read stories aloud. These small personal victories were more meaningful than any external validation, as they signaled the beginnings of trust and acceptance. Her husband's role during this period was equally significant, though often understated. He observed quietly, allowing her space to navigate her new responsibilities while offering guidance when necessary. In his reserved manner, he began to show subtle signs of appreciation, an approving glance when she handled a challenging situation, a gentle word of encouragement, or a rare smile shared in private. These gestures reinforced her confidence and allowed her to recognize that she was not alone in her efforts. The emotional tension between them, once marked by distance and caution, began to soften, laying the groundwork for a deeper connection built on mutual respect and understanding. The household, though still adapting, started to feel more like a home. Shared meals became occasions for conversation, bedtime routines turned into moments of intimacy and care, and even the mundane chores began to carry a sense of purpose and cohesion. She discovered ways to bond with the children through activities they enjoyed, helping with homework, exploring hobbies, or simply listening to their stories. Each interaction was a brick laid in the foundation of trust, a slow but steady construction of a family that had been fractured by loss. External pressures, however, remained a constant undercurrent. Gossip from neighbors, speculation about the age gap between the bride and her husband, and whispers regarding her ability to manage a household with 3 children reminded her of the stakes. She learned to navigate these judgments with quiet strength, understanding that her role required resilience not only within the home but also in facing societal scrutiny. The community's expectations, though heavy, became a backdrop against which her inner growth and determination shone even brighter. Emphasizes the development of the emotional bond between the bride and her husband. Their relationship was no longer solely defined by circumstance or duty. Subtle gestures, shared glances, and quiet conversations hinted at a growing intimacy. He began to appreciate not just her ability to manage the household, but also her compassion, insight, and unwavering patience. She, in turn, recognized his gentleness beneath the veneer of stoicism and the vulnerability that lay beneath his protective exterior. These moments, though understated, were the seeds of romantic trust that would later flourish amidst the family's challenges. By the end of this part, the household had undergone a quiet transformation. Walls of suspicion and grief were slowly being replaced by bonds of affection and reliance. The young bride had begun to establish her place, not as a replacement for the mother who had been lost, but as a unique, indispensable presence who brought warmth, care, and love into the home. Part 3 highlights the incremental and realistic formation of familial and romantic bonds, emphasizing that true connection is built over time through patience, empathy, and shared experiences. It sets the stage for the deeper challenges and revelations that will soon test the strength of these fledgling relationships. Just as the young bride began to feel a sense of belonging within her new family, the fragile harmony was shaken by the emergence of a hidden truth, one that would test her resilience. The bonds she had built with the children, and the growing trust between her and her husband. This revelation did not arrive gently. It came as a shock, thrusting the household into emotional turmoil and challenging the assumptions of the entire community. The nature of the truth varied depending on perspective. It could be a secret from the widower's past, an unresolved conflict, or a societal judgment that had unfairly followed him. Regardless, its effect was immediate and profound. For the young bride, the revelation was a moment of disorientation. The world she had begun to feel comfortable in suddenly seemed unstable, and she questioned her judgment and her ability to cope. Her initial instinct was to retreat, to protect herself from the emotional upheaval that threatened to engulf her. But she quickly realized that her responsibilities extended far beyond herself. The children depended on her for guidance, comfort, and reassurance, and her husband needed her steadiness in facing the repercussions of the truth. This was not a moment for weakness. It was a test of her courage, maturity, and emotional fortitude. The children reacted in ways that reflected their personalities and stages of grief. The eldest, protective and cautious, felt betrayed and confused, struggling to understand why this truth had been kept from them and whether it altered their perception of their father. The middle child, sensitive and introspective, experienced a wave of fear and insecurity, unsure whom to trust. The youngest, who had begun to attach openly to the bride, sensed the tension in the household and reacted with worry, tears, or even tantrums. These reactions created additional challenges for the bride, who had to navigate not only her own emotions but also those of the children, balancing honesty with reassurance in a way that preserved trust and stability. The widower, too, faced his own trials. He had carefully shielded this secret, believing it necessary for the family's well-being. But the revelation brought a mix of shame, guilt, and relief. He had to confront the consequences of the past while maintaining authority and composure in the present. His interaction with the bride during this time became a crucible for their relationship. The young woman's response, whether she reacted with compassion, judgment, or courage, would determine whether the trust they were building could survive the upheaval. Her ability to stand by him while also addressing the children's needs became a defining moment of her maturity and her capacity for love. Beyond the household, the revelation reverberated through the community. Gossip intensified, neighbors speculated about the implications of the secret, and judgmental eyes weighed heavily on the young bride. Social pressure compounded the internal struggles of the family, creating a sense of isolation. Yet, it was within this crucible of scrutiny and tension that the bride began to demonstrate her resilience. She realized that love and loyalty were not simply about comfort and ease, they required facing adversity together. With honesty, patience, and courage. Introduces conflict and raises the stakes. It disrupts the established harmony, forcing characters to confront hidden fears, societal judgment, and the complexities of human relationships. The revelation challenges the young bride's emotional growth, tests her ability to navigate a blended family, and deepens the reader's understanding of the widower's past. It also sets the stage for the subsequent trial and eventual triumph, showing that adversity, though painful, can strengthen bonds and reveal the true character of those involved. The household teeters between uncertainty and resilience. The truth, once revealed, cannot be undone, but it offers an opportunity for growth, understanding, and the forging of stronger connections. The characters are pushed to their emotional limits, and the reader is left anticipating how the young bride and widower will navigate this new reality, protect the children, and transform the shock of revelation into a foundation for deeper love and trust. Following the revelation of hidden truths, the household entered a period of turbulence that tested the young bride, the widower, and the children in ways they had never anticipated. The disruption caused by the secret left emotional ripples throughout the family, and the young bride now faced her greatest challenge yet, maintaining cohesion, trust and stability in a home that had been shaken to its core. These trials were not merely external. They demanded inner strength, patience, and wisdom far beyond her years, forcing her to mature rapidly and embrace her role as both wife and stepmother. The first trials came in the form of the children's reactions. The eldest, grappling with a combination of grief and protective instinct, questioned the integrity of the adults around him. He acted out in subtle and sometimes overt ways, resisting rules, testing boundaries, and withholding affection to gauge whether the family could withstand the turbulence. The middle child oscillated between withdrawal and clinginess, seeking reassurance while quietly expressing anxiety and fear of loss. The youngest, whose innocence had begun to blossom into trust, mirrored the household tension with unpredictable bursts of emotion, sometimes crying, sometimes misbehaving, or withdrawing entirely. The bride recognized that her role now extended beyond affection. She needed to provide a sense of security, model resilience, and help the children navigate their own emotional responses. The widower's trials were equally challenging. While he had always been a protective figure, the revelation forced him to confront his vulnerabilities and acknowledge that some matters could no longer remain hidden. He faced the dual challenge of defending his family against societal judgment while fostering a nurturing, loving environment within the home. He relied on the bride's support more than ever, and the dynamics of their relationship evolved as they learned to work together as a team, balancing authority, compassion, and practical decision-making. Through these trials, the widower began to trust her judgment, recognize her maturity, and appreciate the steadiness she brought to the household. External challenges compounded the internal struggles. Gossip and scrutiny from neighbors intensified, testing both the bride's patience and the family's unity. Unsolicited advice, judgmental glances, and whispered criticisms reminded the young woman that she was under constant observation and that failure could have social consequences as well as personal ones. Yet, rather than retreating, she began to rise to the occasion, demonstrating courage, grace, and resilience. These external pressures became opportunities for the family to grow closer, as they learned to support one another and disregard the opinions that threatened to divide them. Small victories marked the triumphs that emerged from these trials. The eldest child, after repeated tests of patience and understanding, gradually began to trust her, allowing moments of genuine connection to develop. The middle child started to express emotions more openly, finding comfort in the bride's presence and the stability of the household. The youngest child, who had been the most affected by uncertainty, grew attached and affectionate, bringing laughter and light to the home once more. These incremental successes symbolize the bride's ability to nurture bonds, heal wounds, and foster an environment of love and trust. Even amidst adversity, the couple's relationship also deepened during this period. Their shared challenges strengthened their emotional connection, transforming it from cautious partnership to a bond rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and love. The young bride's ability to face trials with maturity and empathy earned the widower's admiration, and in turn, his support provided her with confidence and reassurance. Their teamwork became the backbone of the household, demonstrating that love in the face of adversity is both enduring and transformative. The trials faced by the household reveal the depth of each character's strength. The bride's evolution from an inexperienced teenager to a capable and compassionate stepmother, and the widower's ability to open his heart fully once again. These experiences set the stage for the final resolution, where the family emerges not only intact but stronger, ready to embrace acceptance, stability, and a future built on trust and love. After enduring the trials, facing hidden truths, and navigating the complexities of a blended family, the household finally begins to find a sense of balance, harmony, and acceptance. The young bride, once overwhelmed by her sudden responsibilities, has grown into a capable, loving, and resilient woman. She no longer feels like an outsider in her husband's home. Instead, she has carved out a unique and indispensable place for herself, both in the hearts of the children and in the life of her husband. This part of the story focuses on resolution, emotional fulfillment, and the emergence of a cohesive family unit, the children, who once met her with suspicion and guardedness, now embrace her presence with affection and trust. The eldest, who had been protective and skeptical, has come to see her as a reliable partner for his father and a maternal figure in his own right. He no longer questions her authority or intentions, instead seeking her guidance and approval. The middle child, previously withdrawn, expresses emotions openly, confident in the bride's consistent care and understanding. The youngest child, once wary and unpredictable, now seeks comfort, play, and affection freely, contributing joy and spontaneity to the household. These changes signify not just acceptance, but the successful formation of bonds that had been fragile at the story's outset. The widower, too, undergoes a transformation during this final stage. Witnessing the bride's unwavering support through hardships and her gentle, patient nurturing of the children, he recognizes the depth of her strength and character. The cautious distance that had defined their early interactions dissolves into warmth and intimacy. Their relationship evolves into one of mutual respect, love, and partnership built not on mere circumstance, but on shared experiences, trials overcome, and the gradual cultivation of trust. The couple's emotional connection becomes a model of how commitment, understanding, and patience can turn a challenging beginning into a strong and enduring bond. Societal perceptions, once a constant source of anxiety and scrutiny, begin to shift as well. Neighbors and townspeople, initially shocked by the young bride's marriage to a widower with 3 children, gradually acknowledge her dedication, compassion, and maturity. Whispers of doubt turn into quiet admiration, and the household becomes an example of love and resilience overcoming societal judgment. The truth that had once shocked everyone, the hidden secrets, the unconventional circumstances, the age difference, is now viewed in a new light. Rather than scandal or failure, it is seen as the foundation upon which a loving, stable, and courageous family has been built. At this stage, everyday life carries a sense of stability and warmth. Routines are no longer burdens but opportunities for connection. Meals are shared with laughter and conversation. Chores and responsibilities are handled collaboratively, and moments of affection and reassurance abound. The household, which had been marked by uncertainty and caution, now exudes security, comfort, and a genuine sense of belonging. For the bride, these ordinary moments signify extraordinary growth and fulfillment. She has not only adapted to her new role but has thrived within it, transforming the home into a space of love and trust. The resolution also carries a deeper thematic message: love. Commitment and resilience can defy expectations and societal norms. The young bride's journey from uncertainty to confidence illustrates how courage and compassion can overcome fear and doubt. The widower's transformation demonstrates the capacity to open one's heart again, even after loss and disappointment. And the children's acceptance reflects the power of trust and the human need for connection and guidance. By the conclusion of the story, the family stands united, stronger than before, and ready to face the future together. The young bride's courage, the widower's openness, and the children's evolving trust converge to create a home filled with love, respect, and hope. Acceptance and new beginnings is not merely an ending. It is a celebration of growth, resilience, and the enduring power of familial bonds, leaving the reader with a sense of satisfaction and emotional closure.